Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Hey, everybody, it's Jeff, and we are back to Pathways to Greatness podcast, and thank you for joining today. And on today's show, I have Coach Denny Thompson, and this is a great one. So to give you a little bit of background on Denny, because I butcher it, I was excited to talk to him, and so I butchered it in the actual episode. But he is the one of the partners in Cortex Performance. He's the host of the Built for More podcast, and if you haven't watched that on YouTube or listened to it on any place that you find your podcast, you definitely should. So the background of that is Denny is a top tier quarterback coach. And on the Built for More podcast, he brings in some of the people that he's built relationships with. To name a few, you have Brock Purdy, Anthony Richardson. The list goes on. And his co-host on the show is Joby Martin, the lead pastor of 1122 Church. And find him on YouTube and dig into his stuff because it's fantastic. So together, it's a really, really good podcast. And so I started listening to it, actually watching it specifically. That's the kind of TV that I watch now. And I was really excited about who Denny is and what he does. And for those of you who have listened to the podcast before, know that both of my kids are athletes. And so I live for this stuff. And I really just like not only his perspective of training top tier athletes, but the fact that he's a Christ follower as well and is dedicated to being a disciple and being faithful and obedient to where God's called him. And that's why he started the podcast. And we talk about that in this episode. We talk about a lot of different things. And I had some pre-planned questions and we didn't get to them. And I'm glad that we didn't get to them because the conversation that we had was rich, it was robust, and it helped me as an individual. So I know that it will help you as well. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Denny Thompson. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pathways to Greatness podcast. Today's show, I am joined with Denny Thompson. Denny, how are you?
I don't know that I could be any better, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. So I found Denny, just like I do so many other people, through Instagram, but this one more specifically was about your new podcast, Built for More. And I happened to stumble upon the first episode that I saw was Anthony Richardson. So I'm a huge Gator fan. Grew up in Gainesville, went to UF, all that. So I was immediately locked in. I was like, okay, what is this show all about? And then I went down the rabbit hole.
Awesome. Well, that's the value of having Anthony Richardson and Brock Purdy and guys like that, right? Like it's all of a sudden now there's a 49er fan, listening to a Christian podcast who didn't even mean to listen to a Christian podcast. And that's been kind of the thought of it all along, and just, really highlighting the elite individuals that these guys are. And very lucky that I know these guys. I've been working with Anthony, well, I guess 10th grade. So however long that is, he's 22 years old now. So it's been a while, and know what kind of individual he is. So it's awesome that other people get to see that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Denny, before we get into who you are and what we do, I'll get into all that. I like to play a game just to get things warmed up. You ready?
Oh, let's go. Yeah, man.
All right. It's called Would You Rather.
Okay. All right.
Usually I get different responses because people
these.
have played different versions.
Okay. Yeah.
So would you rather go forward 100 years or go back 100 years?
Forward, without a shadow of a doubt.
Why so?
I already know what 100 years ago looked like. I mean, I can read history. I can see that. On some level, and I know you're the same way, I'm just kind of obsessed with human development. And to see what humans are going to develop in the next 100 years would be unbelievable. I mean, think about 100 years ago coming forward 100 years and what that looks like and the technologies and the advancements that's been. I would much rather go forward than backwards for sure.
Yeah, because, I mean, I'm sure that you've seen a lot of these things when they say, well, when this movie was made, like Dirty Dancing was made, and it was in the 60s. Now it would have been in
Yep.
1990. You're going, wait, what?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I saw somebody post something the other day about today's kids are calling the late 90s the late 1900s. And it's like, oh gosh, that's bad. I was already married.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
My kids. So my son's 17, my daughter's 14. And they're like, well, when TV was around when you were younger, was it in color?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a very big set though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weighed about 1,000 pounds.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I'd rather go forward. No question.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So would you rather always know the right answer or always make the right decision?
Decision. 1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, half of the fun is finding out what the right answer is. That's half of the fun of this whole life, I believe.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody, and you guys actually spoke about it on your episode with Josh Wells. The most recent episode when we're recording this is about so many times you have to look back to see that the decision you made in that moment was right, even though you're like, I have no idea if this is the right decision or not, but you move that in that direction.
It's just making a decision, right? Like that's the part I think decisiveness is rewarded most of the time. You know, I don't know, anything that I've never done. It's that simple. You know, everything that I've done, and I can't learn anything if I don't do it. I can't do anything if I don't make a decision. And so, yeah, I love decisive people.
Well, and what you do and who the people that you work with. So give everybody a little context. So Denny works with high level quarterbacks, has been training quarterbacks from high school on up. And now you're in that position where you're more on the higher end, the older quarterbacks, the more seasoned quarterbacks. And decisions, that position is all down to split decisions. So how do you help someone that's moving at that high level how to make a decision and then move on regardless of the outcome of that decision?
That's a good question. I think to a large level, well, let's separate that for a second. I think high school, college, and pro are all very different, right? I think high school you can largely get through with minimal decision making. I'm talking about from a football perspective, right? I'm going to throw to the open guy. I'm going to keep it moving, especially if you're as talented as these guys are. I wasn't that way, but these guys are that way. In college, you start to introduce like some complexity to this. And then you start to find out like, okay, who's capable of making these decisions and making them with confidence. And then when you get to that NFL, now it's all about the decisions and the execution. And so I just like anything else, I think there's multiple layers to decisions. And one of those is preparation to make that decision. So if I see somebody screaming open 50 yards down the field, but I can't get it there, then it's largely irrelevant, right? And I think that goes for anything, especially for me, is the ability to make the decision, but then the ability to execute on when that is the right decision is equally as important. And so I think these decision-making processes are years and years and years in the making. But the fun thing is it always starts with just that one decision, which is today I'm going to do this. And so, yeah, the sport, the position is hard and it's brutal and it involves a lot of I mean, I don't even know what to call it. I guess, a different level of intelligence, right? Like it's a different type. Maybe that's the way to say a different type of intelligence that I don't think the average person understands all the different complexity or different levels of decisions that have to be made. But at the end of the day, it's still a decision, right? And it's a series of decisions that you make over and over and over and over again. But you can't get to the most important one without getting to the first one. And so I that's part of the things that, and I know you're the same way. This performance thing is just so interesting to me, and the way that guys get to where they're getting to, both physically and mentally, it's fascinating to me. So I'm a big fan. I'm normally the one asking those questions, so I don't even know if that answer made sense, but I'm normally the one, in the ears of the quarterbacks because really our job is simple. It's, can we give them the mechanical feedback and can we put them into the right positions, both throwing wise, body wise, athletically, whatever it is, so that when they make that decision, we can execute that. I've never played in the NFL. I don't know how hard that is. I would imagine it's very hard from what I've been told. But both of those things have to work. I have to make the decision. I have to make a wise decision, and I have to be able to execute that decision. We're more on that execution side, but my energy and my passion is more on the other side, right? Like I love to hear about that. I love to talk about that because I think it's very relatable in just about anything that anybody does.
And I'm glad you added that last part of relatable. And I hope the audience heard that, because decisions in life and our role as parents, as mentors, as coaches, whatever just as a friend, it's providing the wisdom to help someone understand how to make a decision. And, as a parent, what you just described is being a parent. It's walking alongside them. I know Josh talked about it in the episode. It's walking alongside someone and helping them understand and digest and dissect, how do I make a decision? It's like, well, are you looking at all the data that you have in front of you without emotion? And that's the hardest thing, is to remove the emotion from the data.
Yeah, 100%. I also think there's a part of this decision-making thing. You're talking about it as a parent, for me, if I'm worried about my kids making a decision that I failed, then there's something that I didn't do. That is causing them to retract from making an important decision, or maybe the better way to say it is causing me to not be confident in that decision. And so I think just like football or just like work, if you're a good leader, a good boss, or whatever it is, are you putting people in the right space to where they can make their own decisions, right? And you can be confident that their decisions are going to work out for them, because my decision for them is based off of the way I'm built and the way my brain works and what I'm capable of and my talents. They may be far more talented in 3 or 4 different things, and they may get to a result with a completely different set of decisions. But I've got to have faith in them to do that. And I think that comes as a parent, as an employee, as a spouse, whatever it is. Me and my wife could not be more different, but I 1000% trust her decisions, right? And in the instance of a child, it's funny. I've got a 23-year-old and I've got a 14-year-old. And I always find myself, it's like, man, I hope they're ready to do this, or I hope they're ready to do that. Well, that's on me. That's not on them. They don't know what they don't know. And so if there's something that I'm uncomfortable about them making a decision about, then that's probably something I need to address.
That's so good. And it's very self-reflective. And like you, I'm very big on making sure people are self-aware, and it's just owning that and saying, okay, if they're not ready, what do I need to do to make them ready? And right. I know as a trainer, you're thinking the same thing, like, ooh, they did that. Now, what do I need to do the next time we're together so that's not an issue the next go around?
I think it's hard to, I don't know what your upbringing was, but I'm from the South, and you do what you do. Your family does what they do. My grandfather was a preacher. My dad dabbled in that for a little bit, and then ultimately got into insurance and investments. And so that's what I got into, right? But the fact that I got out of it helped me as a dad, because I realized that his calling wasn't my calling. And everybody's built so differently that when you start trying to control things, and now I'm preaching to myself on this largely, really all you're doing is hindering growth, right? When you try to start to control a situation, whether it's through occupation, your kid's going to be this, or even when it comes down to, quarterback training, of saying everybody looks this way when they take a drop, or they need to look this way when they throw, you're taking creativity away, and you're minimizing growth, right? I just don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that to myself, right? That's again, a lot of times when I'm talking to myself, I find myself doing that. Well, I'm going to make this decision because this is the way I've always done it. But then there's something in the back of my mind. It's like, well, wait a second. Like, I see this a little different way. And I think you got to listen to that.
For sure. And the other side of that question is, how many times do we know the right answer and we don't make the right decision? I know that's a daily challenge.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm about 20 pounds overweight. I deal with that every single day. Yeah.
It always comes back to food. I know it does for me.
It does.
You can't outwork a bad diet, which it's terrible. I wish you could.
I think it's also different stages of life, because I'm not sure it was food 15 years ago for me.
No, it was not.
I'll take food right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a welcome pleasure. And once you hit 50, I was talking to somebody, so I turned 52 this year. And it's that you just get up every day and realize that you're going to hurt somewhere and you just move on.
And you're thankful for it.
Yeah, I feel it. I'm alive.
Yeah, largely thankful for it, man. I get to go outside. I get to be in the sun. I get to move around. Yeah, does it hurt? Do I have broken fingers? Yes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But, man, I'm thankful for it. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely.
Having a grateful attitude. Okay, so would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Pizza.
I love the fast.
I love tacos. My wife's going to be mad at that answer, but if pizza wasn't a thing, I would not be 20 pounds overweight.
What's your favorite type of pizza?
Well, we don't have a lot of Chicago style down here, but when I get it, I love that. But outside of that, all of them. Like, I'm not even a pizza snob. It's just, if it's pizza, I'll eat it. It doesn't even matter.
Pineapple or no pineapple?
No. There's no room. There's no room for fruit on my pizza. No. All the meats.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, awesome. All right, last question is, if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Oh my gosh, that's actually a really great question. Oh wow. I don't even know the answer to that. I need a mulligan on. That's a really good question.
Well, if you think of it, while we're talking, then come back to it.
Well, it's funny because we've been talking about this on our podcast of just like, what's going to get you? Like, what is the thing that's going to get you? And, my thing that's going to always get me is ego. So my warning label would have to be something with my ego. Worst times in my life are when my ego's been the highest. Best times in my life is when my ego's been non-existent. And so, for me, the warning label would include the word ego somewhere on it for sure.
Okay. Got it. Well, think about it. And if it hits you in the middle of a conversation, just interrupt. I don't care.
I will.
It's all about an organic conversation. Well, Denny, that for the audience, he's a coach. He's a podcast host. He was a radio. Are you still doing radio?
No, I do little segments here and there, but no. So
radio, podcast. He has Built for More podcast. So please go subscribe and listen to that one. He's he runs a quarterback training group. Is it 6-point group now? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So we have, I know it's kind of complicated. So 6 Points used to be the name of it. It's now Cortex, which I have with a couple other guys who are super talented. 6 Points has become more, representation or management and media production. And so we've just transitioned. I met 2 guys a few years ago, and we just kind of came together. It was one of the best things, or the best thing professionally that's ever happened to me. 2 really smart guys. And so Cortex, we started last year, largely Tom Gormley started last year. And so that's the training side of things.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. And then ultimately a disciple of Christ. And that's, one of those things when you listen to the Built for More podcast with Joby Martin and then whoever cool that you bring on, which is always a great guest, but just the two of you, chopping it up is really good. I encourage, again, like I said, everybody to listen. And I know that's not why you came on, for me to pitch your show for you. But he brings a wealth of knowledge, Denny does. And I wanted to bring him on. And Denny, I started Pathways to Greatness a couple of years ago because I know everybody has a different definition of greatness. And just like you said, is everybody's their different person. Everybody has a different pathway on their journey and adventure to greatness. And ultimately, I want to bring people on like you to share tactics and ideas of how you've navigated through your life to ultimately help people just not quit. I don't want people to quit. I want them to persevere, be resilient. So with all that being said, what would you say is your definition of greatness?
You're full of good questions. Well, first off, I love the name Pathway. Because when you say that, I immediately think of like a wooded area with a bunch of trails, right? And that's life. And you think you're going to go west, but God wants you to go east, and you're eventually going to be drawn east. And so, for me, greatness, I think is living with the flexibility and the drive to go east in that scenario. Like having that ability to say, God, you're going to take me. God is greatness. What God wants for you is greatness. And whatever you end up doing in God's name and in his and with his heart, you're going to do great at. You're going to be great at that. And that can mean, a million different things. So I think for me personally, greatness and what I strive for is being available to God, because he's not going to fail. I'm going to fail. And so that availability and that willingness to explore what greatness God has in store for your life. I know that's not a true definition. That's more using the term greatness, but that's the thing that comes straight to my mind. It's funny because if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I probably would have described, that much differently, much, much differently. Now I just don't put limits on it. God don't have limits, man. And I don't have a definition for what my success looks like other than I want to follow him. And I said this a couple podcasts ago. I was like, if God would have given me what I wanted 10 years ago, I'd be miles behind where I am right now. Miles behind. I didn't even know this was a thing. And so, for me, I think the agility, the ability, the willingness to say, I surrender. I'm going to go wherever I'm called. And maybe that's vocationally. Maybe it's not. Maybe your talent is one thing that generates your revenue and your income and all that kind of stuff. But your greatness is somewhere else. It has nothing to do with your job. Right. And I think just if you are able and willing and receptive to do that, then greatness is just right ahead of you every single day.
And I'm glad that you said that last part. And I was having a conversation with a friend today, and I've battled with this particular topic of your purpose may not be your profession. And if you get, at least if I get too hung up on Instagram and looking at social media, everybody wants you to believe that your purpose can be your profession. That's not always the case. You've got to provide. We are challenged to be good stewards to what he gives us, because you can use your purpose in your profession. The two don't have to be the same. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
1,000%. I have an amazing job. A couple of years ago, I realized that that's my talent, but that's not what I was called to do. That's not my purpose. I mean, it's fun, and I get to do a lot of cool things with it, but my purpose required me to step out. And my talent brought me to my purpose. I think I think you're right. I think nowadays with the internet and with TikTok and with Instagram, and you see everybody's best life, and people's like, oh man, I must be doing something wrong because I don't have the Ferrari, or I don't have something like this. You're probably doing a lot more right than that person that you see is doing, and I think if you're waking up each morning and you're just, like I said, you're willing and you're able to go where God wants to take you, you're going to find what your purpose is. God's going to lead you to that for sure.
Definitely.
He has for me anyway.
So I want to dig into that because I like the term that you used, flexibility and availability. The two are synonymous. Is to be available, you have to be flexible. So if you're having a conversation with someone and you're talking about the topic that we're on right now, how would you help them understand the best way to be available for that next step?
Yeah. Well, obviously, and it's funny because I do a podcast with a preacher, and so I find myself saying a bunch of things that Joby says, and I don't even know if I am saying it with as much conviction as much as I am just trust that he knows what he's talking about, because he's always been great for me. But one of the things that he has said all the time is you're going to find that out through prayer and through time with God, and so I think that number one right there, a given, right? Like that's the first thing. But then for me, and I was just talking about this with a buddy of yours, in fact, I was just talking about this. Like I always had a curiosity about certain things that I think most people would think would be a little, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but weird, just different, right? Like who has a curiosity about rotational mechanics? Like why would anybody have that? But you probably should listen to that, right? You probably should listen to, if there's something inside of you that you're constantly curious about, that when you're sitting down and you're doing, research, or you're just looking into things, you're looking into this one thing and it don't even make any sense at the time, you probably should dig a little bit deeper and pray on that. And that's, honestly, that's at the root of, I don't know that I've ever properly answered this question, but at the root of it, that's what's happened with me. And it happened a little later in life, because I was stubborn. I mean, I'm 48, about to be 49. And really until I was 38, I wouldn't even been able to answer that question. I wouldn't even been able to start the answer to that. And really until I was probably 45, I couldn't have finished it. Right. And so for me, it's just a curiosity and like we just said, a relationship and knowing actually, the other thing I did that not voluntarily, my wife encouraged me. I saw her do it is I really started digging into daily Bible reading. I mean, there's so many answers in that. And it's so interesting to me how you can read a verse one day and it's like, what did that say? And I've got a touch of ADD. So it's like, I'll read a whole page and it's like, I don't even know what I just read. But then there's another day that page sticks out and it makes perfect sense. And so I think, if you can spend time in prayer and you can pay attention to what God's put on your heart, curiosity wise, and then you can be in his word because that is the guidebook. And then I think you probably, answer that question in some way. And I also think a lot of this is, I think I'm lucky, man. I'm sure you do the same way. I think, wow, like who am I that God picked this to be my vocation and my purpose and all that. But to other people, like this may seem miserable. The idea of rotational mechanics may seem miserable to them. To me, it's the best thing in the world, man. So I just pay attention to your individuality. It's not on accident. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I like what you said. And I want people to pay attention to the fact of when you're in prayer and when you're reading, you're quiet and you're sitting still and you're allowing everything, you're trying to shut everything else off in that moment. So that's availability to me is quieting the mind, quieting the body. And one thing that I'm learning is I've started walking the dog without my phone in my pocket. And just not having my phone in my pocket creates a level of, I feel like, availability, but quietness that I don't remember having because there is stuff coming out of this phone all the time, frequencies, and it's picking up 5Gs and whatever you think about that, but it's real. I mean, these things are coming in. And when you don't have that, it's quiet.
A couple years ago, I stopped wearing an Apple Watch because one day I forgot it and I'm training and I'm constantly like looking. I feel like it may be buzzing, but I don't have anything on. And I went home and told my wife, I'm like, you know what? That's just weird. I'm done with it. I don't want the tan line. I'm going to go watchless. That was one of the best things I ever did because all those messages that I interrupted conversations that I was having with people for, because I thought they were urgent because I saw them because they buzzed on my wrist. They're not that urgent. They're not that. Finish the conversation you're having. Finish what you're doing. And I think, being available on this topic, being available to people, right? I mean, I'm not a people person. I'm introverted by nature. I say I don't like people. That's not true. I just don't like being around people because of my awkwardness. I would much rather talk into a microphone or talk to 10,000 people than I would to talk one-on-one to anybody. But I will say this. When you start to develop those deep relationships and you start to see the things that people ask you about and what they confide in you with, you also start to realize the talents that God has given you. Like I've always been one of those people that for whatever reason, like I meet somebody and they just start opening up to me and I'm like, what in the world? I don't even want to know this stuff. But at the same time, I've started to realize that God gave me something there. I'm a decent listener. And every now and then I can say something that can help somebody. And so I think the availability to other people, the availability to serve, to take away the distractions, the phone, the watch, whatever it is, like that's being truly available.
Yeah, that's again, so the audience doesn't pass by, is availability means listening. It means creating an authentic relationship to where the other person feels like you are truly available and that they mean something to you. So I grew up in a household that my dad had a retail business, a small hobby store in Gainesville. And he always told me is the person standing in front of you when you're at the cash register is the most important person in the world. And so I was like, well, why? He's like, because they're about to hand you money.
Yeah.
And it's such a great picture too, is that This is the exchange, whether it's financial or if it's just spiritual or just you being there. That person that's standing in front of you should be the most important person at that moment.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think also there's a piece of this where you learn. So, and the part, maybe I'm just greedy in this. You learn about yourself in those too. Like you start having conversations with people, and you start to hear what they're going through, or you start to hear, what they ask you, especially if it's a long time friend or something like that. You get a lot out of that. You learn about yourself. I think what we're all trying to do is the same thing. We're trying to figure out how to maximize our time on this earth for God's glory. And at the same time, we want to have some fun, right? Like we want to live, we want to provide for our families. We want to have fun with our families. If you don't have family, you want to find families, you want to find relationships, you want to do all those kind of things. You can't do that until you know who you are. And you don't know who you are until you do some self-reflection. And for that, that buzzword self-reflection, I'm a big fan of therapy, huge fan of therapy. But I don't know my baseline until I get into a relationship with Jesus. And that's who tells me who I am. That's who made me who I am. And so I can sit in therapy, but I've got the best therapist in the world. I love her to death. Like I really, truly do. I owe her anything, but she would do me no good without that relationship with Jesus and what he says I am and what he has defined me as. And so I think a lot of times, man, when you have those conversations with people, you just start to learn more about who you are, which helps you piece together your best life and your ups and downs. You asked me, what's my warning label? Like that. I mean, that you don't know that warning label until you mess it up a few times and realize that that's your warning label. Right?
For sure.
That's the truth. And if I just sit in a hole all day, I'm never going to learn that. Or if I don't ever do any self-reflection, if I don't see, there's times that I can handle a situation and I think I handled it well. And then I open my Bible and it's like, whoa, like I could not have handled that worse. Right. And when I say times, I mean all the time. So yeah, I think that's a key part of all of this, especially when we talk about availability, is you just got to know what you're bringing to the table.
And one thing that you had said earlier, and it just kept resonating while you were sharing that example of being introverted, and at least for me, so I'm not going to put words in your mouth, so I'm curious what your thought is. I will sit in the car, I will sit at the door getting ready to walk the dog and say, wait, nope, we got to let them walk past because I don't want to go outside. And people think it's funny, but for me, it's the idle, nonsensical chit chat. Like I just don't enjoy just idle chit chat. I'd rather have an in-depth conversation that I can learn more about who Denny is and what makes you tick. And then in turn being able to share like, oh, okay, well, here's that. And like, I need depth and meaning. What do you think about that?
Oh, 1000%. We could hang out. Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, we'd either have amazing conversation or none. Cause I'm perfectly fine being quiet too. Like perfectly fine. And I say this all the time, but I don't know. I care about people. I do. I just, like you said, it's the idle conversation that I'm just not good at. I'm just not good at it, man. Like if I see somebody, if I've got guys I work with, I do care how they're doing. I really do. But I mean, we got work to do, so let's get to it. Like the small talk, like, are we even telling the truth in it? And so I just don't, I do care how you're doing, but I don't care what you're going to tell me how you're doing unless it's true.
Right.
This is a bad thing. In fact, the podcast we just recorded that'll be out next week, I think is the best one we've done. It's absolutely phenomenal. Patrick Young is the guest. And I told them, I feel guilty about this. I've lived in the same neighborhood for 9 years. I do not know a single person in this neighborhood. That's how introverted I am. I pull the truck up, I open the garage, I walk in, I close the garage, and I'm in here in my little just bubble with my wife and kids. That's not good. And it's something I'm trying to work on right now. But I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because if I didn't have a dog to walk, I probably would be the same way. Yeah, and we had a guy in the neighborhood that his name's Wally, and he doesn't live in the neighborhood anymore, but he had an impact because every day at noon he got on his Earth cruiser and cruised to the neighborhood. And he was a talker anyways, super nice guy. That was just his thing that he got out. And I started thinking, I was like, that's something that I want to do. And then all of a sudden the introvert's like, nope, stay inside. It's okay.
Do you get the thing? Like my dad loves talking to people. My dad will walk up to anyone and he will know their entire life story in 10 minutes. I get so uncomfortable even watching that happen. I don't know if you're that way, but it's like, I cannot imagine being that guy. And it's a talent. I just don't possess that.
Yeah. My mom's that way and my daughter's that way. My wife's that way to an extent, and my mother-in-law, and they'll just go up. And then next thing you know is they've been chit chatting forever and they find out where they went to school and all this. I'm going, I just wanted to buy this and leave.
Right. I'm sure they're great people. Yeah. But I didn't need to know that. Yeah, for sure.
But just like what we were saying a second ago is, are we really, this is self-awareness and reflection for both of us. Are we being available if we're not putting ourselves in a position to ask and then have those predetermined responses to hopefully engage someone into a better conversation?
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. But I also think that there's value in boundaries. And, I have a job where I'm around people all day, and it's a fairly intense workplace that I work in. And when I get home, I have, safety and security in my wife. And, I travel a lot. And sure, like I think the people that I know that if they need something, I'm here. But I fortunately, I'm very blessed for this. I just don't have the time to sit around and do that kind of stuff. Not if I'm going to put the right energies into all the things that God has put into my life and be diligent with those things, most of which is my wife and my kids. We have 2 dogs that I don't do anything with. My wife loves them to death. I love them as well, but I barely have to walk them. But, for me, I think there's that balance, right? Like there's the balance of, do I want new friends? Probably not, because I just don't, I don't have time for that. But I also know how bad that sounds. Like I also am very aware, and very trusting a little bit too on this, that, God has consistently put the right men in my life, over and over and over again, and they have found a way to reach me. God gave me this personality. I know the things that I need to work on. But to me right now in this season of life, my boundaries are as important as anything right now. And that's something that, I probably didn't recognize even 5 years ago.
And that's really important. What you said is around the boundaries. And for those people who are like my daughter and my mom and other people, is that many times not having a good boundary creates challenges in and of itself. So it's like goes both ways. And it's that adage of, if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else every time. So be protective of what you say yes to.
Well, I think too, for a lot of people, if you've got something in your life that just, it's like, man, I can't get out of this rut, or I can't move forward. I can't do it. Well, sometimes that can be what you're saying yes to. Sometimes the things that you think you're doing as a good person, maybe you're hindering you. Maybe your availability to your friends is hurting your marriage, or, it could be a million different things. Certainly not using that as an excuse for my lack of communication with neighbors and things like that. But, I am very protective of my time, very protective of my energy right now. And I do trust, I know that I have to make a better effort, but I do also trust that God has the right people in my life, because I do pray about who's in my life, and I do pray for who's in my life. And so I'm comfortable. I know it needs improving, but I'm comfortable.
Yeah. And again, what you said, I want people to hear is the idea of know who you have around you, be available for those people, and not that you're unavailable to other people and pushing them away. You're just, what's important at this point. And so you're protective of that. And that's critical, because again, so many of us who struggle with, a lack of self-esteem, they want to gather as many people around them as they possibly can. And this is me speaking like when I was younger, is I just wanted as many people around me because it made me feel good to have a lot of superficial friendships or acquaintances. I wouldn't even call them friendships. They were acquaintances, versus now I want depth. Like I want to go deep with people and understand who they are. And I don't need a ton of people. I'm like you. I'm fine with my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm good. But through this and having a show like you have, you get to have some really, really good, challenging conversations that fills the cup of what I need.
Yeah, that's been the goal of it, and that's been what my business has turned into. Is I'm not really sure I'm great at anything, and I'm not trying to be modest. I actually say this, back to your availability, but I am willing and able to ask the right questions, and I do have a curiosity, and I do want to learn about people, and I found, in the last decade, probably in the last 5 years, there's this set of people operating out there that are operating at a very high level, and they just do things differently. And I was blessed to find my way into this world around these people. And you just start to realize, you're like, man, like availability or exposure to this is huge, because maybe, the things that I hear every single day, there's maybe somebody sitting somewhere that they've never heard before. And when they hear that, it's just going to unlock something. And it's just a different way to think about something. And it's just, oh my gosh, I never thought about it. Right. And so that's the thing that I just try to be good at that. I just try to, I genuinely, the one thing that I do this over, there's two things. It's my family's health and my marriage. And this podcast is I legitimately pray about this. Like legitimately is as I just am so thankful for those things that were given to me, that I just want to use them in the way that God intended. And I'm very careful about this with these things, man. Like I mentioned my ego is the thing that gets me, because I'll get in the way of this. And I don't want to do that. And so through relationships, or through any of this stuff, or through knowledge, or I'm not the kind of guy that's going to walk up to somebody in a park bench and say, hey, let me tell you about Jesus. But I am the kind of guy that's going to do a podcast that maybe reaches some people that didn't before. Right. And so how do I use that to grow his kingdom? And just, I need to get myself out of the way and let God do this. And so that's the thing that I am pretty faithful about. I could do a better job at praying about literally everything else in my life. But those two things I'm pretty consistent on, and I feel like those are the things that God has blessed my maturity with.
And that last word was the kicker, maturity. As we get older, we start to understand what we should be doing and then what we do. Because when we were younger, we know what we should be doing, but we don't normally do it. And we shrug it off thinking we have time or it's insignificant. And you talked about rotational mechanics. The small things matter. And the small things are what mess us up. And that's
good.
Critical.
Yeah, no, that's good. And the assumption too, I think that people grew up the same way you grew up. I was very lucky. I grew up Southern Baptist. Grandfather was a Baptist preacher. Amazing man. Just amazing man. My father-in-law, who just recently passed away, was a longtime preacher as well. Amazing man. Dad's awesome. My mom's awesome. Like I grew up great. So I can walk through life with the assumption that everybody grew up that way. Now, I've had hard times. I've been dead on my face, like flat on my face, I mean, many, many times. But I can make the assumption that everybody had, that upbringing, when the reality is that a lot of people didn't. And so if I can in some way provide just a piece of someone else's knowledge that helps them replace something that maybe they didn't get before and just rewires them a little bit, I think that's one of the most, honorable things that I can do right now. And so I this podcast is it's far and away the lowest revenue generating thing that I do. Right. I mean, far and away. But it's my favorite thing. It is absolutely my favorite thing. And I literally thank God for it every night.
Well, and you're leveraging the relationships that he provided you to be a disciple and to do the things that you needed to. And I know often that guest probably needs that conversation more than the audience needs the conversation. And then I'm sure that there's many times you're sitting there going, okay, I needed this more than anything else to hear this, to hear me say this to someone else. It's like we talked about earlier. You're going, I'm preaching to myself. I would say 95% of the conversations I have, I'm sitting there talking to myself.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I even in this conversation that I'm having with you right now, I don't even think about anybody listening to this. I don't think about when we're in these podcasts. It's like I get so much out of it that it's just like, man, I mean, I would do this if we weren't recording it. This is a dream scenario for me. Are you kidding me? To sit down with who I think is, I mean, I think Joby is one of the wisest people I've ever met in my life, Joby Martin. And to be able to sit down with him on a weekly basis and with another high achiever and just literally pick their brains for an hour, hour and a half. Are you kidding me? I love all of you listening, but I don't even need y'all to listen. Like, I get so much out of that, so much wisdom. And I'm not sure that 20 years ago, I was in a place that I would have received that wisdom. And you know, I think as parents, we do this. It's like we oftentimes will hammer home the points to our kids that we struggled with, that maybe we felt like we were deficient in. I do that with the podcast. A lot of times I ask questions and I'm very upfront with it. It's things that I struggle with and I need to hear somebody how they deal with it. But you know, there's a million different kinds of people, man. But at the core of it, like we just all are trying to get along and love each other. Like that's what we should be doing. And if we can pass along information that helps us accomplish that and helps us celebrate the goodness of God and expand His kingdom, then I'm here for it.
Yeah, there you go. And I made a post when you were talking just this weekend about that. I don't want to be the best in the room. I want to be in the room with the best. Mm-hmm. Because that's where you learn. Because I'm sure, just like what you had echoed, how many times do you pinch yourself going, I am not qualified to be in this room whatsoever. So I'm not really sure why God has put me here, but here we go.
Every room that I'm in, I feel that way. I mean, I go to work every single day with a group of guys, and I get a ton of credit because I do media. But these guys, man, I shouldn't be in that room. The fact that the only reason I'm in that room, we've talked about this on our podcast, is because like I kind of started part of this thing, right? And so they have to let me in the room on some level. But I feel that way in every single room, and I'm super grateful. Like I can't tell you why anybody would want to have me on their podcast. Like, but I love the conversation we're having, and that's that. I'm just super grateful and super thankful. And I'm in a place in my life, a season of my life where I can be grateful, thankful, and I can act on it. And I, you know, you brought up insecurities. I deal with those all the time. Joby agreed to do this podcast last May, a year ago. We didn't do the first podcast till February. It wasn't Joby's fault. It wasn't the guest's fault. It was me. It was like, I am not going to throw myself out on a Christian podcast knowing how flawed I am. And then finally just did it, and still flawed, by the way. I haven't changed a whole lot there, but I'm learning, and that's the point of it.
And it is, and it's the idea of living out the fruits of the Spirit and being that good neighbor. And we talked about, I know you can still be a good neighbor and go into your house,
right?
But it's that we can't wait on somebody else. And you know, I wrote a book back in 2020, and I was encouraged to do it, and just like you with the podcast, I'm sitting there going, why in the world would I write a book? Like, I'm just Jeff from Orlando. I'm not a former professional athlete, not a billionaire, not a former Navy SEAL, like all these things that people see people writing books about. I'm like, I'm just another guy in Orlando. So I was talking myself out of it. And then somebody's mentioned to me, they're like, you know, there's more Jeffs in Orlando than there are Navy SEALs, billionaires, professional sports, all those different type things. And so I did it. And through the grace of God and truly a gift, I've sold more than 500 copies in 5 years.
Let's go.
Which they say for a self-published person that's a ton. And if you were to say I had 500 plus people that wanted to hear what I had to say, I would have said, you're a joke. Like standing up, if I was in an auditorium with 500 people, I would have been blown away. I've been telling everybody, look at this. But we do this to ourselves if we play it down out of, I don't think it's out of humility. I think it's out of almost like a self-destructive behavior of, I'm going to hold back what God's telling me to do because I don't have faith that this is something, because I'm worried about what is Denny going to say when he's like, well, who's Jeff writing a book? Well, I shouldn't care. I need to go with what I'm being told to do.
Yeah, I can identify with that in a lot of ways, for sure. You know, I don't think I'm a greedy person, and I think sometimes we definitely live in a greedy world, and I'm not really money driven. I like pleasing other people. Like what my hobby is, like I love to spoil my family. Like that's when I work hard, I want to spoil them. And so I've kind of reframed that, and I've made it not about me. And I've almost put the responsibility of, you have to do this podcast because God has a person, 10 people, 10,000 people, 10 million people, whatever that is, that he needs you. He don't need you. He wants you. He's going to reach them through this podcast, through your book, through your podcast, through my quarterback training, through fill in the blank, right? Whatever your job is or whatever it is that you do with your free time. And whenever I reframe that, that helped me, because then it took me out of it. And it's like, okay, it's not about that I'm 20 pounds overweight, or it's not about that I got this weird thing on my eye that you can see on camera, or it's not about any of that. It's literally about, like, if I want to do this thing right, I get one chance at this, and I hear God screaming at me to do this, and it makes me physically ill to say no to him time and time and time and time and time again, then that just resets the way that I look at this. And so for me, that's been a way that I've been able, it's almost like I'm not going to doubt God. He's going to take whatever this is, whatever I am, what he's going to do with it is what he's going to do with it. I'm just going to go forward in what I believe to be what he wants me to do. And then the results are up to him. And if it fails, it fails. Like, we talked about that earlier. Like, how does it fail? Like what, 2 people listen? You don't know who those 2 people are. You may have just changed somebody's life who goes and leads 1,000 more people to Christ, and so on and so on. Like, you just don't know, man. And none of this is about us. And so for us to have those insecurities is, I don't know, it's so counterproductive to happiness, and to true fulfillment, that I've just had to kind of find a way to rephrase that in my mind, because I'm just like you, man. I will beat myself to death on all the things that I do wrong, none of which anybody cares about. Nobody gives a crap how I look. Nobody gives a crap how much I weigh. Like, God told me to do this, I'm going to go do it. And I need to take that in every action of life. But, the ones that I have taken that on, I've been rewarded with.
Yeah, because again, they have their insecurities, they have their issues, and it goes back to what you said earlier, is the ego. All of that, those insecurities come down to ego, and I care more about what you think versus what God's leading me to do.
Yeah.
And
I had an aha moment. I actually have never even told anybody this, but along those lines, this was a couple years ago. This quarterback training world that I work in is actually an insane world. It's a very weird world, and it's not even really a thing when we started. Like, it's just kind of come up, and we do things a little differently than most, but it's this world where, like, these people train everybody, and then they take pictures with them, and then they, everything they do, they post about them. And it's like, whoa, like, wait a second, like, what's going on here? And so I would find myself looking at others to gauge how I was doing. And in some way, I was almost pulling against people that I didn't even know. And it was just like, whoa, like, I don't even know this guy. I don't even know where this guy lives. But I'm like, not wanting him to succeed. Like, what does his success have to do with mine? Like, what is the holdup here? I had a realization at that point that, man, like, if I'm doing it that way, I'm doing something wrong. Definitely not doing it in the image of God. And so for me, that was like along the lines of what you're saying with that ego thing. It's like, why am I pulling against this guy? And why would they pull against me? Like, we don't even know each other. And what I'm doing is, I'm trying to help this person over here be better at what they do. Isn't that what I'm trying to do? Or am I trying to glorify myself? And then you have to answer those questions to find out if you're doing things for the right reasons. Turns out I was doing the right things. I just wasn't doing them with the right heart. And when I changed that, I'm just telling you, my life got remarkably easier, man. So much easier.
Well, it's going back and like we talked about earlier, the Bible is the perfect instruction manual of how you should live. Whether you believe that Jesus died on the cross and died for your sins, if you just look at and go follow the Bible, and you follow Jesus' example, because he lived for God. He wanted none of the credit whatsoever. So much so when he did miracles, he's like, don't tell anybody. My time's not ready yet. How many people, including you and I on here, if we did something miraculous, healed someone from an illness that they've had for their entire lives, would go, don't tell anybody. Mm-hmm. And we might say, don't tell anybody because we don't want to be bothered, but it's don't tell anybody because, I'm not doing this for the credit. I'm doing this for you because I'm living the purpose that he gave me. And so when we look at Pathways to Greatness and what, Denny had shared about being flexible, about being available and making decisions, it all comes from wisdom and comes from really understanding all the things that he has shared so far in the episode. And it's a challenge for all of us to think that way of where's our heart? Are we doing things for the right reasons? And are we showing up the way God's wanted us to? And the only way we know that is to be quiet and sit still.
Yeah, I find myself being really good at giving people advice, but not good at following my own advice. I have a quarterback that I'm close to, and we talk about that all the time. Like, we'll call each other and say, what would you do in this? And we'll give some amazing advice, but then 2 minutes later, we won't do it for ourselves. And, that's an interesting thing. I think that's a little bit about what you're talking about too, is just the wisdom to understand that your advice that you give people should show. You shouldn't have to give. People should look at you and go, oh, that's how you're supposed to live this thing. And so on a very, basic surface level, the thought of pulling against somebody, you would never tell somebody, hey, that's wise to do. But I bet there's a lot of people listening that when they think about it, oh crap, I am doing that in my own business, or maybe there's somebody down the road or somebody at their church or somebody at their school that they're jealous of or something like that. You would, if you were outside of yourself talking to you and you were your friend, you'd be like, dude, you got nothing to be jealous about, but it's your insecurity. It's that thing, man. And that's not from God. That much I know. And I know that because when I started to try to chip away out of it, and it's all the way gone in certain aspects of my life, but it'll pop up at times. And that's why it would be somewhere on my warning label. But in those areas that I have done away with that, my life has improved drastically. My marriage being one of them. I was not the best husband. I've been married for 27 years. But man, I've legitimately poured into this the last couple of years. And I think my marriage is stronger than it's ever been. And I just enjoy spending time with her and think she's the best thing that's ever walked. Right. And I don't have an ego about this, man. We just got to get this done. It's kind of like what you just said about not telling people about miracles. Like, I don't need to tell her if I take out the trash or you know what I mean? Like that's a basic level of that. Right. But it's just like, I want to serve because I want her to literally live her best life. Like that's what I want. And by doing that, I have to serve. And so if I can do that in other aspects of my life, if I can help in some weird way, you live your best life and this person live their, I can't imagine a more fulfilling life, and I think that's what I'm after, even in the training aspect of things at this point, is just that relationship and, being able at the end of this thing to go back and go, okay, like I not anything I did, but through the situations that God put me in, I was able to help some people. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And for those listening, is you have to do it on purpose. I mean, you have to, your marriage wouldn't have gotten better if you didn't put the work in. The quarterbacks that you work with would not improve their performance if they don't do what they're being shown and what they know they need to do. Consuming it does nothing for them.
That's right.
It's actually putting it into action. So think about the things that we talked about today and what you need to put into action. So Denny, I want to be very respectful of your time because I know it's limited since you're actually at home.
Now I got a couple minutes. You're good. Yeah.
Yep. So what would you like to leave the audience with for last remarks?
Well, I think I'm pretty consistent on this when I'm asked this question. I think we a lot of times hear people say that they're not qualified and we to do what they're doing. And we sometimes can think that that's just kind of speak. That's a humbleness. But I want to leave everybody with this is, you probably, a lot of you don't have no idea who I am, but I will tell you this: my life is at a place where I never thought it would be, and I am living out dreams that I didn't even know I had. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I train and I'm part of a group that trains high level quarterbacks. I did not play college football. I played high school football and was really good at handing the ball off. Like, wasn't even good enough to throw the ball, right? Like, it wasn't a thing. I spent 35 minutes in college. I'm not classically trained at anything in life except for screwing up. And I'm just grateful every single day that God has allowed me, has qualified me to have conversations on podcasts like this. Like, it truly means a lot that anybody, even if it's just one person, gives a crap what I have to say, because that's something that God has given me, that platform. And so the thing I want to leave people is pray about that. Pray about your platform. Pray about what it is that God is calling you to do, because I didn't know. And I wasted a lot of time trying to do me instead of trying to do what he called me to do. And that to me is the thing that, my heart breaks. Literally, I have a soft spot for this, man. Like, I hate to see people struggle, because I've been there. I hate it so much. And I hate to see people get into this just desperation trap of feeling like I've got to compound one problem with another problem with another, because I've done that. And I know how bad it feels. And I know how desperate you get and how hopeless it feels. I also hate to hear people who are wildly successful tell me how great they are and how great they're doing. But there's hope. There's hope. There's hope in Jesus, and there's hope. And I am living hope of that. And I am a flawed individual who's been very, very blessed. And I just want to make sure that everybody listens and understands that I am not qualified to do any of this. I'm not trained to do any of this. This was intentional. This is that God has a plan for each and every person on this planet. And my prayer is that everybody hears that and actually digs into that. I don't know how else to say it. I want to say it so much better. I want to communicate that. I want to be able to communicate that in a much more effective way. But that's the thing that is constantly on my heart these days. Do you have that thing, Jeff, where it's just like, I don't know how to say this. But it just weighs on me all the time. That's that thing. Like, even just one person, like, I've been there. I've been down that road, and it's just, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it, and you can't pull yourself out of it. And what your friends are telling you is wrong. Well, all you got to do is open up one book, go to church, listen to some podcasts. There's a wealth of information. Pray. DM me. I'd love to pray for you. Literally love to pray for you. I've never had anybody DM me saying, hey, please pray. Never had that. Like, I would love that. So yeah, I don't even know if that made any sense, but man, it's on my heart, and I appreciate you giving me the platform to say it.
No, it was awesome. Well said. Well said. So how can people find and follow you? And if they need to connect with you, how do they do that?
At Built for More Pod, Built the number 4 More Pod, or is it Denny Thompson Jacks is, I think, my Instagram. Yeah. I mean, I'd love a follow, and however I can help, I would love to.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. And like he said, just to give you guys a recap, is be available, be flexible, make a decision, and just live that true, authentic self so other people can see and respond in that way. So Denny, thank you very much for being on. Hang on one second. But ladies and gentlemen, Denny Thompson. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.